Hello friends, my name is John Ross and I'm with Amazing Facts Media Ministry in Sacramento, California. We are just delighted to be here in Serbia to be involved in training and preaching and sharing the good news of salvation. You know, the hope that we have is that one day Jesus will come. And we believe that His coming is going to be soon. On that glorious day, the graves are going to open up of those who love Jesus, and forever we will be with those that love God and with Jesus. What a wonderful reunion day that'll be. You know, for 3.5 years, the disciples were with Jesus. They had walked with Him on the dusty streets of Galilee. They stood listening as Jesus taught the people. They watched Him feed more than 5,000 people with just a little boy's lunch. They witnessed Jesus raise Lazarus from the dead. They had come to know Jesus and love Him. So when Jesus told His disciples that He was to leave them and ascend to the Father in heaven, their hearts were filled with sadness. When Jesus saw the sad looks on the faces of His disciples, He said these beautiful words. He said, "Let not your hearts be troubled. If you believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house," Jesus said, "there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also." You see, Jesus has given us a promise. He has promised that He will come back again and receive those that love Him to Himself. That is the great hope of the Christian. Yes, Jesus is coming again. Sometimes we visit with those who have gone through some very difficult experiences in their life. Too often, I've performed funerals as a pastor, standing there by that open grave. It's a place of sadness and sorrow. It's difficult to say goodbye to those that we love, but the Bible gives us a promise that Jesus will come again. I often tell people there standing in the cemetery at an open grave, that even though this is a place of sadness now, when Jesus comes, it'll be the happiest place, because the dead in Christ will be raised and the living will be caught up to meet the righteous in the air. What a wonderful reunion that'll be. Now, when Jesus gave this promise and He said to His disciples that He was to prepare a place for them in heaven, and then He would come back and receive them, that was couched in a promise that often was referred to as a proposal, a marriage proposal. You see, back in Bible times, when a young man proposed to a young woman and she accepted his proposal for marriage, the young man would go back to the father's house and he would add on a room. When the room was all finished, then with all of his friends and much pomp and fanfare, he would go to the bride's house and he would escort her to the father's house. It was actually at the father's house where the wedding ceremony would take place. They would then live in the room that had been added on while he went out and he built their own house. Now, when Jesus said to His disciples, "I'm going to go to the Father's house and I'm going to prepare a place for you, and then I'm going to come and receive you unto myself," it is a promise that a young man would give to a young woman who has accepted his proposal for marriage, that he would come back and receive her. You see, Christ's promise to come again is the bridegroom promising to the bride that He will come and receive her, take her back to the Father's house where the glorious marriage supper of the Lamb will take place. Yes, this is a promise that we can count on. This is a hope indeed that will sustain us during times of difficulty and times of trial. Now, I grew up in South Africa. And growing up in that country, there was a very famous foot race that people would always anticipate. It was the highlight of the running calendar year, this great marathon between two big cities. And as a child, it would often be covered on national television, this race, as people would run from one city to the other. Now, in addition to getting the gold and the silver and the bronze medal for finishing first, second, and third, there was also a medal of participation that would be handed out to all of the runners who could complete the course within a certain number of hours. So there was a big clock in a stadium that was counting down, and the runners would come running into the stadium for the last part of the race, and they would need to cross that finish line before the clock ran out of time. Now, I remember as a child where we were watching this race on television. It was the final moments, and the people were finishing the race. They were running into the stadium and then going around where the people were sitting and coming towards the finish line. There was a big clock that was counting down the time. And I remember seeing this, the runners coming in, and there was one runner in particular. She came running into the stadium, and the camera zoomed in on her face, and you could tell that she was in pain. She had run hard that day, and she wanted to finish within the allotted time so she could get her medal of participation. Well, she came running towards the finish line, and the camera zoomed in, and not too far from the finish line, you could see that suddenly her legs began to cramp up. She was in great pain, and she stumbled and she fell to the ground. Well, the crowd hushed, and everybody was watching to see what would happen. Well, she then got back up on her legs and began to try and run towards the finish line. But again, the pain was so great that she stumbled and she fell to the ground. And there she lay looking to the finish line, sort of giving up hope that she would be able to finish within the allotted time. But then somebody from the stands called out to this young woman and said, "You are almost there. Why don't you crawl to the line?" She heard that. And with much effort, she got up on her hands and her knees, and she began to crawl towards the finish line. Well, when the people saw what was happening, they all started to cheer her on. There were even some spectators that broke through the stands, and they came over to where she was, and they got down on their hands and their knees, and they started crawling alongside her, encouraging her, saying, "You're almost there. Come on, don't give up. Don't give up." Oh, you should have seen it. It was exciting. The clock was ticking down, just a few more moments left, and there she was with all her might crawling towards that finish line, and everybody there was cheering her on, and just in time, she was able to cross the finish line. And oh, you should have seen, the crowd went wild. You would have thought that she had won the gold medal. They lifted her up and they hoisted her on the shoulders of some of the spectators, and they paraded her all around the stadium. For she had finished, she had hung in there, she had crossed the finish line. You know, friends, it's as if we can almost hear the angels say to us as Christians, "You're almost there. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. Don't allow circumstances that you might be facing in your life to distract you from the great goal of sticking to the course and finishing the race that has been set before you, looking to the author and the finisher of your faith." You see, friends, even though we go through difficulties here, Jesus has promised to be with us every step of the way. He has sent His angels to help in every situation, every time of need. You know, one day when we get to heaven and we see the glories that God is preparing for those that love Him, there we are singing in the angel choir, being with those that love God, being with family and friends and the great heroes of the Bible. What a day of rejoicing that will then be. The trials of this life probably won't seem that overwhelming when we're finally in our heavenly home. So friends, today I just want to encourage you, wherever you might be, whatever trial or difficulty you might face, I want to encourage you, don't give up. Look to Jesus to give you strength. Just perform the duties necessary before you for that day, and trust in Jesus to give you strength from day to day. For it's not by might nor by power, but it's by the Spirit of God that ultimately we will be victorious, that we will finally get to our heavenly home and spend eternity with Jesus. I pray that you would hold on, be faithful, till Jesus comes to take us home.